Chapter 30. A Trundle Tornado. The hunter sprang out of the living room in a flash, leaving only a thick cloud of smoke from his pipe. Growler wasted no time hanging around either. He followed him straight out of the door. The hunt was on. Their prey was close. They got him this time, Growler, William heard the hunter cry as his voice disappeared out through the front door and into the street. The Christmasaurus was in danger. William had to get free from the net to help him, but it felt more trapped than he'd ever felt in his life. He was strapped into a wheelchair, caught in a net, hanging from a ceiling fan. It was hopeless. But just then, William saw something dangling in front of his face, something hanging from the ceiling like a lifeline, a pull cord or a switch to turn the fan on. Suddenly, William had an idea. There was no time to think it through. He had to just get out in the street to help the Christmasaurus, and with his dad and Santa tied up, it was all down to him. He reached up and gave the hard tug on the cord. A whirling, buzzing sound instantly filled the Trundle's living room, and the blades of the ceiling fan started to spin. There was an ear-bursting screech from above the fan, struggling to turn with the weight of William and his chair hanging beneath it, and he pulled out the cord a few times, selecting the highest, fastest, most powerful spin. "William," cried Mr. Trundle, "what are you doing? The fan will chop you into pieces." "Don't worry, Dad," yelled William as he was starting to spin round and round the middle of the room. His escape plan was working. The ceiling fan started to gain momentum, picking up a tremendous amount of speed. As if it got faster and faster, William started to feel the G-forces mushing and squishing his face with all sorts of ways that hadn't been mushed and squished in before. "Hold on, son," called Mr. Trundle, worriedly watching helplessly from the corner as William flew in great circles round the room. William was now whizzing round as fast as anyone was watching him, just looked like a blur, smooshing and whooshing round and round and round, like some sort of indoor trundle tornado. Suddenly, there was a noise, a horrid, awful, tearing, ripping noise. "William, the rope!" cried Santa, who had managed to spit his beard out of his mouth. The rope holding the net of the ceiling was slowly being sliced by the blades of the fan. With each spin, the rope was getting thinner and thinner. It wouldn't hold much longer. It's okay," called William from somewhere within his spinning blur as he tried desperately not to throw up. This is the plan." Slice. The blade sliced through the final threads of the rope as if they didn't even exist, and William found himself flying for the third time that night. He flew through the air, across the room, over Santa's head, straight towards the window. Smash! He crashed through the glass, landing with a great clatter in the snowy front garden underneath the heavy rope of Hunter's net. Peering through the rope, he caught sight of Hunter and Growler stalking up and down the streets in the direction from which the roar had come. William tried to wriggle free from the ropes, but he was stuck. The ropes weren't just twisted and tangled, they were twangled right around the wheels of his chair. It would take hours to untwangle it all, and the more he wriggled, the more twangled the ropes would become. Suddenly, William felt a rather odd sensation that everything was growing bigger. Or was he getting smaller? It was the same feeling he had had on the rooftop just before falling into the chimney. Santa was using his magic. The ropes around William were now double the size. No, triple. Actually, they were 10 times the size that they were, and as there were the holes in the net, just big enough for William to wheel himself through. He quickly lifted one of the now huge, heavy ropes off his lap and over his head. "I'm free." He pulled himself out of the enormous net and saw a very small Santa dramatically somersault through the now enormous broken window. An even smaller looking Mr. Trundle was running out of the even more enormous front door of the even more gymongous house. "William," the tiny shrunken Mr. Trundle called to his tiny shrunken son. "Dad," William cried as a massive world around them shrank. So perhaps they all grew. Either way, everything was back to normal size in no more than 3 seconds. William hugged his dad tighter than he'd ever hugged him before. He was so happy that he was safe and he still had his head. "We've got to save the Christmasaurus," Santa urgently, as another tremendous roar broke through the calm Christmas morning air. The sun was still low in the sky, coating the white snow-quilted streets in a fiery red glow. Santa, William and Mr. Trundle headed behind the wonky hedge of the small front garden. They peeked over the top and saw the hunter creeping down the middle of the snowy road, his deadly sniper rifle raised in his arm and his beady black eye stuck on the telescopic sight. Growler by his side, sniffing the fresh morning air, trying to pick up the scent of the Christmasaurus. Suddenly, he let out a bark. He spotted something. The hunter had spotted it too. Right at the far end of the street, way off in the distance, was an unexpected silhouette of a dinosaur. "Look, it's a Christmasaurus," whispered William worriedly. He must have followed the sleigh. "That silly, dippy, woozy, no-brain dinosaur. I told him to stay at the North Pole," Santa cursed. The sun was rising behind the Christmasaurus, causing a large, dark dinosaur-shaped shadow on the snow. A mighty roar came rolling down the street. The Christmasaurus was there all right. "I need to put the end to this once and for all, Mr. Trundle," said Mr. Trundle as he unexpectedly stood up and straightened his Christmas jumper. "What are you doing, Dad?" William said, completely confused. "Stay here, William." And with those words, Mr. Trundle marched fearlessly out of the street towards the hunter. "Dad, stop! He'll shoot you!" cried William. "No, he won't," said Mr. Trundle as he turned and looked at William in the eye. "He's my brother."